All right, we are live with episode 5. We're already on 5. Holy shit. We are on episode 5 of the PHU Dynasty podcast. This time I'm with my esteemed colleague, longtime member of, actually inaugural member of the PHU Dynasty League, the Bonerville Swallows GM, Vincent Patrick Naney. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good.
He's hanging in there. He's here. He's selling real fake doors. And today we're going to talk about one of our favorite teams. It's the Chili Cheese Fries. I would say in the mid tier of the shit talkers in this league. What would you think about that?
I mean, yeah, his shit talking is just like his team, middle tier.
Perfect segue into our first category we're going to do here for Tibbs. We're going to talk about what he did last year in the draft. Not a ton to talk about here as far as breakout players. We'll be honest with you, Vince. We got Devin Duvernay right at the top. It was his 3.8, I believe, 3.8. It cut him in the middle of the year. Not even on the team anymore. You can't say a whole lot about that.
Didn't like what he saw. Did not like what he saw from the guy early, and said, we don't have time for people to develop around here. We're moving on.
Yeah, and I believe he's on Alex's team now, so Alex can reap whatever benefits that.
He has all the time in the world for development, so Alex the perfect fit.
Alex has more development time than anybody in the league. We'll put it that way. Devin Asiasi, I thought at the time was actually kind of a sneaky pick, just because that team did not have a tight end on the roster. Basically, that was worth a shit. But Asiasi was hurt for like a good majority of the year, I believe, too, and didn't really show anything in the games he played. So it's kind of hard to call that any sort of a hit.
That team's passing attack was also just abysmal. There was just not a lot of meat on the bones.
I mean, he also does not currently roster Asiasi, so that he was cut as well.
That one's a bit more reasonable. I mean, they're both pretty reasonable cuts, but still.
Sure.
Don't want to be cut third round picks that quick.
No, it sucks to be even third round picks. Like, I hate when I had to cut like a third round pick the other year. I was like, geez, god damn it. Like, because those are my pride and joy. So
when I drafted DJ Chark, I mean, I think he had like 50 receiving yards his first year, something next to like nothing. And I was kind of on the fence about cutting him, but because I had nobody, my team was awful. It kind of made it easy to be like, oh, this is the guy I got to keep. So sometimes it happens, but sometimes your team's winning now and you can't watch people grow.
No, there's been a couple different times recently where I've had to cut fourth rounders and I feel bad about it, and eventually they break out and I feel like even more of a doucher. So we got 2020 waiver picks too, and then when I talk about waiver picks, I'm talking about the waiver draft that's after our normal draft. So the 3 rounds. In this go around for Tibbs, not any hits. I think Jared Stidham was a big nothing. Raymond,
but that was a good pick at least, because that was what we all thought was going to be
at the time
competing.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I think there was some value to the pick at the time, and also you can't even judge these picks really, because I mean these are effectively 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks, so like they're not expected to hit.
Yeah, we're literally talking about the 50th best player as rookie draft.
Sure, and I mean people hit in the rookie draft, in the waiver draft too. It happens, but it's just not very likely. So we're not going to shit on him too much for this. No. Raymond Calais got cut by the Bucks. I believe he got picked up by the Rams towards the end of the year. So like that was decent. I mean, he's still around. And Colby Parkinson, I honestly couldn't even tell you who that is. So I'm pretty sure he's a tight end. Pretty sure he's a tight end from Stanford. I did not even know who he got drafted by. So none of these players that you're looking at on the screen here are on the team for Tibbs. So we're not going to go too much into depth. We're not even going to try to grade that. If we wanted to, probably not. So let's get right into it. Arguably his best position group, in my opinion. I think it's going to be the quarterbacks. It looks good on paper to me. What do you think?
It looks good on paper. It looks good off paper. It looks good everywhere. I mean, honestly, Drew Brees retiring is kind of almost like a good thing, because he'll probably get a younger guy in who will, who actually, may have some value for him going forward, because Drew Brees kind of felt like a roster clog for him, because no one wanted to really trade for him in Dynasty, because how many years are you going to get left, as his, yards per throw and all that have been decreasing year to year. And then he's never really been able to use Drew Brees, because it's not realistic to start him over Pat Mahomes, or honestly, even the way Baker Mayfield played this year. Like, Drew Brees, I think, is his definitive third. But yeah, other than he's got Baker Mayfield and Pat Mahomes, he's good for 8 to 11 years of, I would say, quarterback 1 through 3 play, and then maybe top 12 or 15
which is
from Baker.
arguably what you want for a backup, like out of Baker. I would say Baker is probably in our league a great number 2 like quarterback to have, just because you can rely on him on a bye week. You can rely on him if Patty gets injured and not have a gigantic drop off. If, like, let's say you had, like an Alex level quarterback, like a Daniel Jones or like something like that, then there's a pretty big drop off. So I think Baker there is a decent little find. But I also think Baker, I feel like when he came into the league, Tibbs was higher on Baker than anybody. And I don't think he's quite what we thought he'd be fantasy wise. Like, I mean, he's good. He's just not great. Would you agree with that?
I agree, but I also think we haven't realized his full potential. Like, Baker's best seasons are definitely ahead of us. Last year kind of felt like the coming out party, because the year before that he got a lot of hype, and it kind of all fell flat.
Fizzled. Yeah.
And then this past year, he kind of was shitted on, and the whole team, Browns team, really stepped up with the new coach, Kevin Stefanski, did a great job. And, that offense was really clicking, even without Odell Beckham. The run game was just so potent. Chubb is insane. And even without Chubb, they still were a pretty decent offense. So I see a ton of upside for Baker going forward. And he doesn't even need it. He has Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, it'd be great to have those two. And I just kind of want to touch on Drew Brees. If I was Tibbs this past season, I should say, like, I would have tried to trade him for like a 4th round pick or just something, and now it sucks. I mean, yes, he's retiring a chili cheese fry, but like, that's a kind of guy that, like, maybe somebody that just needed a quarterback during a bye week or just something to get by, like, maybe just try to get anything out of him. What would you say about that?
I agree. I felt the same way. Like last year, I was going to cut Devonta Freeman, and I just sent a bunch of feelers out, and someone took it, and yeah,
I did the same thing with AJ Green this season too. I kind of felt like it was towards the end of his like decent value, if any value, and try to just get something out of it. I thought that was something Tibbs probably could have done.
Probably, but it's tough to micromanage that type of stuff, especially mid-season. He's probably like, I don't care about a 4th round pick, but I agree with you. That's why I said, like, kind of now, like, Drew Brees retiring is going to really free up a spot that he probably could use on a prospect somewhere else. I don't think he needs to run 3 quarterbacks. I think this is a team that definitely can be safe with 2 quarterbacks rotating throughout the year.
Yeah, and if anybody gets injured, it's probably a lost season anyway at that point for his fantasy team. Like,
if Mahomes got injured, yeah. I mean, if Mahomes got injured, it is a loss.
It's not like he needed, like, let's say Mahomes got injured and then Baker's a starter and then he just didn't have anybody behind him. Like, I think at that point you just call it a lost season and move on. So, because there's nothing in our waiver wire. So, like, it's like not like he's going to find a quarterback, a 3rd quarterback. It's always nice to have 3 if you can.
This is a good segue, though. Like, this is kind of, when I see this team, I see tremendous talent from a few people, and then kind of a lot of just waiver wire people after that, not a lot of startable positions. And like, that's kind of a good example that, can this team win if Pat Mahomes isn't doing the best he can?
I see a nice little feline friend back there.
Yeah, he's over there. Yeah, if Pat Mahomes isn't having his best games, Tibbs isn't winning a lot of games, and it's because he's also tied to Tyreek Hill, I can't even say number 1 wide receiver, because he also has Devontae Adams. On any other team, Tyreek Hill would most likely be the wide receiver 1. But this guy has 2 people who have an argument for the wide receiver 1. I mean, I would, if I was doing my dynasty receivers, it'd be tough not to put them, 1, 2, or 3. I mean, maybe you could sneak in like Jefferson over one of them, and I could see the argument because he's just so young. But even still,
I would say I would agree with you on that point. I also think, let's go back real quick to quarterbacks. Every time I've done one of these team reviews, I've kind of done a grade. So what grade would you give?
This is an A.
Group? I think this has to be an A.
A plus? I mean, are we doing A pluses? Yeah. If we're doing S tier, it's S tier. I mean, like, whatever.
I don't think we've ever done an A plus now that I think about it. But this is an A plus because you got the best asset who's young at quarterback, and then you have Mayfield, like you said, has upside and is also young, which I don't think anybody in the league really has 2 guys that are young and have upside that are this good.
The closest argument is Dustin with Dak and Kyler, and even still, that what I know now about all 4 quarterbacks, I would rather have probably Tibbs's combo than I would the Kyler Dak combo. I feel like there's a little more uncertainty with both those franchises and offenses rather than Pat Mahomes, who's locked and loaded. I feel like for a decade. I mean, even the contract says he's locked and loaded. For a decade.
There's no way that Mahomes is gonna, unless like, injuries kill him or something. Like, I can't see any way he's not relevant, dynasty wise.
Fuck. Dan also has Josh Allen and Deshaun Watson. That's another. I mean, that's
pretty goddamn good.
Those are as good as it gets. But again, same argument like with Deshaun Watson that I just applied to the other guys. Like the uncertainty that surrounds him has to knock him down. And even if all things are perfect for all the other guys we just named, they're still not as good as Pat Mahomes. So that's why this has to be. There could be other A pluses because I mean those are. Dustin and Dan both have excellent quarterback situations, but I think this is the best quarterback situation in our league, and it's going to be this way for I think a while.
He doesn't have to do anything to this position if he doesn't want to.
No, but he could take another value guy with that third pick, or James got Justin Herbert with his 4th round pick. If he drafts another guy like that, he totally can to replace that Drew Brees kind of that is now going to be a roster spot. So no, that's a great. It's an A plus. Yeah. So segue to running backs.
Yeah, we don't even have to talk about quarterback anymore. So with running back, this is one of Tibbs's prides and joys, of his building his team. So he spent a lot of capital trying to get a few of these running backs that you see here on the screen. Put a lot of investment into some of these guys, and I feel like last season was a bit of a letdown. I mean, I think you have to think, Joe Mixon missed a grand majority of last year, kind of a letdown there. Austin Eckler also missed a grand majority of last year. Le'Veon Bell fell off a cliff. Fournette, had his moments last season. I mean, Gurley kind of had a good start, fizzled out. This group just feels like a disappointment to me. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I agree with you. Quick correction, not Duke Johnson. That's supposed to be David Johnson.
Oh, it's the real Johnson. Sorry.
Yes, David Johnson.
The real Johnson.
The real Johnson. So, all right, this quarterback or these running backs are a real grab bag of assholes. I guess we'll start with what I would consider the good to great, with like Joe Mixon and Eckler. Joe Mixon, he had a rough year last year. I mean, essentially outside of a couple good games, he really had a pretty bad year. But I think that was more the story of the Bengals season, losing Burrow, a bottom 5 offensive line. I think he'll be better. I really think he'll be better going forward. I think that was going to be one of the down Mixon years. So I really like what you're going to see from Mixon going forward. And I'm going to fact check myself, but I'm pretty sure Joe Mixon's only 25 years old.
Yeah, he's still young. He came into the league as a 20-year-old, so I'm pretty sure he's 25.
Yeah, he's 24 actually right now, but he'll be 25 at the start of the season, so that's where I must have got that from.
That's crazy because there's running. I think James Robinson's 24 this year, which is wild.
Joe Mixon already got his 2nd contract. Meanwhile, Najee Harris is going to be 23 at the start of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting what these running backs, they come in so young, they can have a little bit more wear or a little less wear and tear on them. And like Mixon, it feels like he's been in the league for 10 years already, but he's still never hit that full potential, which I
agree.
I don't know if he'll ever hit it. But even if he kind of middles at what he's at now, he's still a dynasty asset, which is great. But it's probably not what Tibbs thought he was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, at least with him, I feel like the best is yet to be seen. The team believes in him. The team's been bad for a lot of these years. Now the team is actually looks like it's going to be good. And by good, I mean they're building something.
They're doing the right things, I feel like. Like T. Higgins, Joe Burrow. If they draft Kyle Pitts, this is a good offense.
Pitts, so our guy Penny too could be there, and that would be an insane pickup for them too. But I think Joe Mixon is a good asset for him going forward. I do think it's been a little disappointment in the past, maybe when the team could have used it to get him over the hump. But I think going forward, this is his locked and loaded RB1 prospect that he has going forward. Will he be an RB1? I don't know. Maybe he's RB12 overall, but this is Tibbs' RB1.
Yeah, he certainly has the upside to be RB1, especially on this team, the way it's currently laid out. Austin Eckler, segueing into that, I think he's a rock solid RB2 for sure. Like he's especially in that offense where there's not a lot of competition for running back touches. I mean, they've tried Josh Kelly, they tried Justin Jackson while he was injured. Neither one of them really separated themselves from the pack. Kalen Ballage even got carries. I think Eckler is a really solid kind of guy just to have as your RB2 flex one kind of guy. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think Eckler is, and what I really like about Eckler is, it's kind of like a homegrown talent for Tibbs there with that Eckler. He's not someone, I don't think Tibbs overpaid for him, unless I'm misremembering something. I'm pretty sure Tibbs just straight up, I think he got him in the 3rd round, if I remember correctly. Wait, isn't there
there might be some
sleeper now? Or
there might be some transaction history. Yeah, if you click on his player page, I think you might be able to find it.
Not on the desktop, so let me just look real quick on the phone.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Eckler was one of the guys that he either got kind of as a throw-in to one of the larger trades.
Oh, wow. No picks by Tibbs. Says he was drafted.
But when did it say he was drafted? Because sometimes that sleeper thinking can be a little funky because they didn't add that in until later.
Yeah, it says he drafted him with the 16th round and the 2nd pick in the 16th round. So
yeah, so that's unfortunately not super accurate. But
I don't think we had 16 rounds. We love drafts, but not like that.
Not in Dynasty. I mean, imagine if there's a 16-round rookie draft. Holy shit!
We're getting there. We got 7. We're working our way.
Fucking kickers and punters and shit would be great.
Either way, the point is it was a good pickup by Tibbs whenever he got him. I think he's under contract for at least another few more years with them. And now that offense got Justin Herbert, it's got a nice little shot in the arm. Getting rid of Anthony Lynn, I think, will really help open it up for a pass-catching back like an Austin Eckler. And I really think that, this is another solid player on Tibbs' team that, we need to start 2 running backs, and at least Tibbs can say he could start 2 running backs that I believe are guys who are going to get touches every week.
Yeah.
And those are the 2 guys that I think are guaranteed touches on Tibbs' team going forward.
Yeah, I think you got workhorse Mixon. Eckler at least will get 60% of the touches if he's healthy. I think those 2 guys are pretty straightforward. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting because Le'Veon Bell, 2 years ago was one of the hottest commodities in free agency in the NFL. Literally looking for $15 to $20 million a season. Now he's literally a backup to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I believe he's a free agent now. The value just dropped off a freaking cliff with Le'Veon Bell. I've arguably never seen value except for maybe one other player on his team right now that had such a monstrous drop in dynasty value.
Honestly, are you talking about Leonard Fournette or Todd Gurley?
I'm talking about Leonard mostly because Leonard was he's still young, Leonard Fournette. He's still 25, 26. He's not Le'Veon's up there. Duke Johnson's up there. Gurley's up there. But Fournette was sorry, I keep saying that. David Johnson's up there. I feel like Fournette was the one guy that had so much promise and was young and he just tanked. There was just a colossal drop in value.
Well, I mean, the organization stopped believing in him. He was always a runner that needed 20 touches to get going in a game. He's not a guy honestly, like an Eckler, we've seen Eckler kind of really do well with very few catches because he's really an electric player, but it's not Leonard Fournette's really kind of forte. I mean, the Bucs honestly did an excellent job with really getting Leonard Fournette going. It's credit to Bruce Arians and Brady that they kind of knew how to use him when they did, but it was clearly not something the Jags could do. So yeah, he kind of went from being a workhorse to being this change of pace guy on a loaded offense. And now I also think Leonard Fournette is a free agent too, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yeah. It's unlikely the Bucs bring him back. So it's going to be interesting to see where he lands. Does he go to a place where he does get 60% of the touches? And if he does, is he, what kind of asset in dynasty does he become at that point?
I don't know if he's getting 60% of the touches anywhere he goes, and that's a big number.
Let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say Leonard Fournette signs with the Seahawks. What happens there? Because I think that's a very interesting landing spot for him. They love those bruiser type running backs up there.
Okay, I can see this. In this universe, Seattle, what do they do? Maybe they take like a 4th-round running back, maybe a Zach Moss of this year type player?
Yeah, let's say they get, just a solid type back. No, nothing that's gonna like blow you away, like a Keshawn Vaughn, something like that.
I think that's a nice spot for him. I think the best thing for him though is to stay in Tampa.
Yeah,
I think
I
he
mean,
wins there. I think the team wins. I think if he take a team friendly deal to stay in Tampa, he won't regret it. But I don't even know if Tampa wants him. You never know what really they have planned. They got a lot of free agents, and Leonard Fournette's like what, maybe the 6th most important free agent to the Bucks right now.
yeah, he's pretty low on their priority list right now, unfortunately for him. But
Well, I mean, let's talk about all of Tibbs's running backs. I think this really underscores the issue with this running back core is these are all the big names of 2017 and 18. Not a lot of these
well,
guys
he's sold out
are
for these guys back in those years.
sold out for him, and he still is literally paying to this day. He's still actually paying for it now. Yeah, Le'Veon Bell gave up CMC for plus a pick. Leonard
That hurts
Fournette.
already.
That hurts already. Leonard Fournette was part of that package deal with Adam or Alex, the one where you made that meme with SpongeBob dropping the load.
That's correct. Yeah, that was like Larry Fitzgerald, Tom Brady was involved in there.
Mm-hmm.
All those. Yeah, it's unfortunately for Tibbs. I mean, like none of these guys had the longevity that he probably thought they would.
No, David Johnson had that great season. He was already 27 years old, so it was kind of
he was an older rookie when he came into the league. So when he blew up that one season, I believe he was 25 or 26 already. So now you're looking at him at I want to say he's 28, 29, something like that now. That's not a time where you're going to see another like resurgence most of the time for running backs. I'd have a hard time believing, and I believe he took a restructured deal with the Texans again. I have a hard time believing that he's going to be anything more than maybe a running back 2 if he gets it all going together. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, so that's really the big point here is that a lot of these guys are free agents. Le'Veon Bell, Leonard Fournette, Todd Gurley, and like you said, Duke Johnson was a free agent until this past week when he just got re-signed to probably the worst situation in the entire NFL because we don't know if Deshaun Watson's going to play. We know the team is rebuilding, honestly, with or without Deshaun Watson, quite frankly, because even if they keep Deshaun Watson, kind of every phase of that team is a disaster.
Yeah, it's going to be a long rebuild there.
Very long rebuild, and then
that didn't need to happen.
Didn't need to happen, but we're not going to get into the Texans problem. We need a whole new podcast for the Texans problem.
This is brutal.
So let's talk about Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley is a really interesting character.
I think so too.
Todd Gurley, let me see bring up his stats so I don't talk on my ass. I think he had 9 touchdowns, maybe double-digit touchdowns.
He had a shit ton like right at the beginning of the season, and then did nothing for the rest of the year. Like, I'm fairly certain he had 13 touchdowns. Like I want to say he had 13.
He had literally 9 touchdowns before the bye week. That's insane.
Holy shit! How many do you have total?
Was it 9 touchdowns.
So he had 9 touchdowns. That's crazy.
He fell off
any receiving?
No, he didn't have any receiving touchdowns. What I think is, again, underscores the problem of really Todd Gurley is not the player he was, and the Rams kind of knew that. And of all the moves that Tibbs made, we're not going to beat him up for everything because a lot of those were the right moves at the time. Like I think we all agree, like him trading for Leonard Fournette and Tom Brady. I'm pretty sure he won the title after that year. That next year, Tibbs.
Yeah, either that or the year.
He got what he came for. He got what he came for. Just like when James won the title with shitty Trey Mason and a bunch of other asshats, and then pretty much immediately rebuilded. He got what he came for. James kind of did the same thing actually. This past title he just won, where he won and then immediately had a rough year to follow suit. But again, who gives a shit? He got his championship. That's really all that matters. Is hitting your window and hitting it hard. And Tibbs has not hit his window as well as as he would have hoped to.
Yeah, I bet he thought with his receiving core that he has now too. We'll get to that in a second, and then all these running backs. I bet you he thought he'd have 2 to 3 championships by now.
And there was there's a lot of good teams in that time. He also ran up against Alex's one-hit wonder, and he ran up against a lot of good Buffalo blowout teams as well.
Yeah, I got him twice. Yeah.
We're fighters, man. Those Buffalo blowouts, I think, have either been the championship or been the champion or lost to the champion in what, like every year for like the last 5 years?
At least 4.
Because you lost to James, you lost to Alex when he won. You've won 2 titles
I lost
in
to
that
Scavelli
span.
too.
You lost to Scavelli when Scavelli won. So, yeah, I mean, pretty much the road to the Dynasty Championship has gone through the Buffalo blowouts. And that's been bad luck for him. But, now we're talking about the future. And I don't see how this running back core is a championship running back core. You want to get to grades of the running back core, and I kind of try to give grades based on like, we talked about like what else do other people have in the league, because we can't all have A pluses and that kind of mantra. And I would say that this running back core is a C plus. Maybe I could give it a B minus if I'm really feeling generous. But the reason I feel like personally I have to keep it in the C plus range is there's no really young prospect.
I was just about to say that there's no guy on this list that I'm looking at that sticks out to me as like, oh, this guy, up and coming guy, like could be really good. Like there's no, because, and that's partially because he's had no draft picks, and there's just nobody that excites me outside of the top 2 as a long-term guy that'd be like, okay, maybe Tibbs can build around this guy in the future. I don't see those guys right now.
No, I mean, I think there's a debate to be made here that literally outside of Joe Mixon and Austin Eckler, there's not a single startable player. Like if you're putting a startable,
in flex spots, yes, but maybe not like RBs.
But even in flex spots, like right now, Le'Veon Bell, Leonard Fournette, David Johnson, and Todd Gurley, 3 of those 4 people, we don't even know where they're going. Number one,
it's true.
So that in of itself is its own problem. But they wouldn't be starting on a lot of teams in this league in flexes. I mean, with the exception, we got to throw out Alex because he's an outlier and would throw off all examples because of course these guys could start for Alex. But I don't think
put him on your team. Starting. Put him on your team. Who would you start in your flex on your team? Over who you have now?
Joe Mixon and Austin Eckler are the only people that would make it. Everyone else would. I don't even know if they would make the cut on my team. Like I'm not even sure like there would be a spot on my team for Le'Veon Bell. Like David Johnson, obviously we know where he is. He'd be worth it.
He's certainly a rosterable player for most teams. But
I shouldn't have said not rosterable. Maybe that was a little harsh. They are most certainly rosterable players. It's just that like they're at the point that they're almost becoming roster clogs because they're not people that you can very clearly start. And that's a problem in Dynasty. If you can't clearly start someone, then they have to be a prospect. Because if I'm not building towards something and I'm not starting you, then what the hell am I doing with you? And that's kind of where I get upset with these running back core. Like Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler, cool, great. We've established what their value. After that, like you said, we're not building towards anything with any of these guys. No team. If the Chiefs couldn't bring in Le'Veon Bell and make it work, I'm struggling to see someone else is going to bring in Le'Veon Bell and make it work as a whole crop of new running backs come in like they do every year. And we know that running backs, you want young guys. There isn't a lot of value in those veteran running backs.
They get phased out fast. I mean, a perfect example, and a player on your team is like Devontae Freeman. Had a couple really great seasons. Free agency came around. Literally nobody wanted him. He signed a late deal with the Giants, didn't really do anything spectacular, and he's basically just kind of like a fodder at this point. It's amazing how fast they fall off the cliff.
Yeah, and I mean, he got that huge deal. I think it was like the 3rd biggest running back deal until just this year. I think it was. It was a huge deal, and it was almost impossible for him to live up to that hype. And yeah, when that type happens, it puts a team in a spot that the team says, well, now it's a business move. I got to get rid of you, and your running back isn't worth it. We can get someone else. So what did they do? They brought in Todd Gurley, and they just kind of reset the dice to, okay, we'll wait another year, and then when that comes back, we'll get rid of Todd Gurley and bring in a new person. And Atlanta still hasn't solved the running back issue to this day, but Todd Gurley is not going to be there this year. We're all pretty certain on that. Where's Todd Gurley going to go? Is he going to be scoring points? I'll tell you right now, I don't think he's scoring 9 touchdowns again, which clearly was an integral part of Tibbs' team.
I'd be surprised if he had 40% carry share wherever he goes this year. Like, I think he's just going to be like a perfect, like 1-2 kind of guy, and not really anything I want in my fantasy team, to be honest with you.
No, truthfully, I want the Dolphins to sign him as a nice, like, change of pace.
I think that's a great great pickup for the Dolphins. Put him with Myles Gaskin, put him with Ahmed, who played well at the end of last year, and that's fine. You're set. Like, it's good.
You don't even need to okay, both cats are gone. I'm shutting the door real quick. You don't even have to worry about you wouldn't even have to worry about not being able to. Yeah, they love that. You don't have to worry about not drafting another guy. Like, you don't sign a Todd Gurley and then be like, we're solved. We don't have to draft a guy.
No, Najee Harris falls. He's a nice classic stopgap running back.
But so then that's here we are though with Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, and Le'Veon Bell. They're all stopgap guys, and I think all of them are looking to fulfill that role.
Couldn't agree more. And I think I'd give this team a B, honestly, only just because I do like Mixon and Eckler. I think those guys are both quality, startable dynasty running backs. So, and they're both relatively young, so I like that.
Yeah, I definitely like that. And the other thing too is Gio, for better or worse, is obviously tied to Joe Mixon's value. If Joe Mixon has a bad year and tanks or gets hurt, Gio will be the benefit of that. It's always good to have your handcuff, and I think he got him for like Michael Crabtree, and I think it wasn't expensive. Second back too, even a few years ago with Sean.
Crabtree.
So yeah, it was a name drop, but that's what I think that trade was. So that was another player I wanted to touch on. That was a nice pickup by him a while back, but.
Yeah, he also I wanted, this is not Darrell Williams, this is Damian Williams, by the way. I don't know why I thought about that. He picked up Damian Williams, who I dropped because Damian Williams was not playing this year for the COVID. He opted out. So I mean, I doubt he has any value really with Clyde Frog there, but maybe he, sneaks in for a couple of touchdowns and finds a way.
I think he'll get some rushing. I'm not so sold that Clyde was this great runner last year, and I think he'll obviously be getting plenty of targets going forward. But Clyde's not even on his team. So real quick, but Clyde I thought would be a really good pass catcher in the NFL, and I thought the Chiefs would be great at really getting that out of him. But it really wasn't something that I felt came to a head last year like I wanted to see from Clyde. They used him more like a runner, and he could do that, but it's just
I thought they would feature him in the passing game a lot more than he actually did.
I think Damian Williams is going to come in and really take a lot of those, like I said, maybe some goal line, maybe a couple first and second down work, and I really want to see if this will be the key that they keep Clyde fresh for the quick bang bang offense where they're really moving. I don't know, something to see, but that's a nice pickup at the end of the year. We talk about getting guys that you can at least hope that you're building towards something, and Damian Williams I think might be a guy that you might get some starts out of him. Okay, let me put it this way, Eric. At the end of the year, right now, would it shock you if Damian Williams has the third most points out of everyone in this group? Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah,
I think he could have a year like Todd Gurley just had. I think he could have a 9 touchdown year with like 500 yards. I think it could happen.
I mean, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. I'll say that. I think there's just a couple other guys. I do think Leonard, if he goes to the right spot, could actually be a pretty decent value because he's still got some legs under him. I think with Todd and Le'Veon, I'm way less happy about their situations because their age.
Yeah, I think Todd and Le'Veon are the lesser of those. I think it goes probably Joe Mixon, Eckler, then maybe David Johnson, Leonard Fournette, and then maybe probably Gio or Damian Williams. But either way, like we said, this is a C+, B- group. There's not an elite one here to be proven, and there's not really any prospects that really get either of us excited.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all that. So let's go to the wide receivers. This is quite an interesting group to talk about. You got to love the 1-2. We were talking about it earlier. I mean, it's
amazing.
Obviously, one of those was completely my fault and should have never have happened. So I'll just admit my fault now. It was a preemptive decision that I didn't wait for the facts and evidence to come out, and I paid for it brutally. So I apologize to everybody in the league for having to play him on another team. It'd probably be even worse if he was on my team because I feel like I'd have another championship by now. But
you may have beaten James,
it might have helped
a couple of years ago because you traded him before that year, so that may have been it. But no, that one hurts. It is excellent. At the top. We talk about Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams. I mean, Odell Beckham as your wide receiver 3, even with his deflated value due to an injury and not really gelling with the Browns team. I would still argue that if we stacked up everyone's top 3 wide receivers, Odell Beckham would be in the top half of wide receiver 3s in this league.
Oh, no question about it. Yeah.
I mean, you talked about like when we talked about the other guys, like put them onto your team. I think Odell Beckham would be better than my wide receiver 3. So, Odell Beckham is an excellent wide receiver 3, and I would tell you that like his first 2 are so good, it's almost impressive how distant they are from like his next player, and it's really because those players are so good. And then like we drop from Adams and Hill to Odell, and then the next drop off from there is to what? Maybe Brashad Perryman? Is it Travis
I would go
Fulgham?
towards like Tyrell Williams or somebody like that.
Did he just sign a 1 year with the Lions? Did I make that
with
up?
the Lions. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, $6 million deal, which is more than I thought he was going to get, to be honest with you.
I think that the Lions are clearly rebuilding. They're looking for the future, and it's just a veteran guy that they know that they could throw out there. He'll run some decent routes. They don't have to pay him too much. He's not going to bitch out the ball. He knows what his career is at this point, probably too. So that's a good spot for him. But the cream of the crop of this group, again, we talked about is the Mahomes Hill stack, which wins games. I mean, Tibbs' team has lived and died by that stack.
Looking good.
Yeah, and that's why, despite him being, I think he was the 4th seed, and ended up with the 5th pick, in the draft if he would have had it, when it was all said and done. And yeah, I mean, this team had a few. I think he had an 80s performance. He had one in the 90s, but then he's also getting the big performances, those 160s and 180s that are hard to do. And the reason he could do those is because he is the best stack in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I would argue
it's damn
too.
Impressive.
His 1-2. I mean, it's pretty rare to see in our league, at least, to see a position group that's this. I mean, this is literally the 1 and 2 receivers in Dynasty, in my opinion. So, like, I mean, how many times have we seen, a 1 and 2 running back? Like, it just doesn't. We haven't seen this really in our league too much. So, kudos to Tibbs for taking some calculated risks along the way to get these guys. Both these players actually were on my team at one point, and Antonio Brown was on my team at one point. I had all 3. And now Tibbs is reaping the benefits, so it hurts a little bit. But yeah, Antonio Brown also looked decent on the Bucks. I mean, if he's going to be back, probably, I would imagine, on a relatively cheap team deal. I can't imagine he goes to a situation or wants to go away from Tampa. I mean, unless he's just all about the money, which he very well could be.
You hit the nail on the head. If he was smart and if he's being advised by someone who actually cares about him and his career, they would tell him that you need to stay with Tom. You've made plenty of money. He was doing endorsements out the ass before he went crazy. He should have a nest egg of money to be able to take a fair deal to both the Bucks and him and really rebuild his legacy. I mean, I think Antonio Brown is one of the great polarizing players of all time. I think he's a Hall of Famer, and I'm not sure he gets in because of the shenanigans he just pulled at the end.
Yeah.
But this is the way you rebuild your career with a guy like Tom Brady. You win a Super Bowl, win another one, and then people will really start to forget it when they go to the Hall of Fame vote, when they remember, oh, he had probably 7 All-Pros to go with a couple Super Bowl rings. Okay.
Yeah, it looks good on paper. I mean, I think it's another situation too with the Bucks, and we were talking about Leonard Fournette earlier. He's going to be low on their priority list. I think there's going to be other guys that are going to want to pay first, and if he's asking for too much money, he might not go back to the Bucks. And then if he doesn't go back to the Bucks, his fantasy value is kind of just up in the air like the rest of these guys that we talked about earlier.
Short of doing something like, oh my God, Green Bay took a risk on him, or the Chiefs decided to take a risk on him.
Yeah, I mean,
short of a miracle situation like that, I can't see anyone being better than the Bucks. And I'm not even sure, even if you went to Seattle, I would still probably rather have the Bucks, just because I really value the stability that the organization clearly has brought to Antonio Brown that he was lacking everywhere else in his life prior to, kind of really the New England situation. I think would have worked if he didn't have the sexual assault case hanging over him and stuff that happened. So I think that really is what made that situation go south, but it made sense because Tom Brady left anyway too. So I think Antonio Brown will probably end up being the wide receiver 4 maybe in this group. Alshon Jeffrey, a case of the, what could have been, never could stay healthy, kind of just rode the IR the last few years in Philadelphia. I don't see a lot of value in him.
Yeah, I think he's kind of one of these guys. I think I'd argue Brashad Perriman too. Just neither one of those guys really stands out to me as like quality depth players. Like they're depth players, but I don't think any of those guys are going to crack his lineup very often, especially with the top couple that he has. I mean, really with his top three, Hill, Adams, Beckham. I mean, let's assume Beckham, becomes, somewhat regains his form to like a mid-tier, like wide receiver 2, which is what I believe he probably is like at this point in his career as a wide receiver 2. If he can get to that, then none of these other receivers are really going to see too much time other than flex plays. So, I mean, is there a guy that you're excited about outside of the big three and Antonio Brown, maybe?
No, I mean, I'm not excited. I mean, I like Travis Fulgham. I liked him kind of last year. I thought he was playing really well, and then the Eagles kind of mysteriously just stopped using him, and now it's a totally new regime. I think they need to draft a receiver, so I feel like the Travis Fulgham ship is kind of may have sailed away just as quick as it got here when he had a few. I mean,
it was amazing. He had like 4 weeks of just like elite level production, and then he just literally disappeared. I've never seen anything like that.
So let's give a quick grade to this, and then I'll bring up something else I wanted to bring up with this group. But if I had to give this group a grade, I think I would have to go with a B, a solid B.
Interesting.
I can't go much higher with, again, what I was going to segue to is when you bring this group together and you bring the running back group together, you have to start he has 2 running backs we deem startable. Okay. Those are the 2 running back spots. He has 3 wide receivers we deem startable. There goes your 3 wide receiving starting spots. We still have 3 other flex spots. Okay. We haven't done tight end yet, everyone, but spoiler alert, it's fucking bad. So there's no random tight end 2, he could randomly start in the flex. No, that shit ain't happening. He doesn't even have a tight end 1 to start a tight end. So I don't know where those 3 flex players are coming from that stacks up with the top end teams in the league. It's like randomly just looking at like Dan's team, who again is a little crazy because he's at the top, but like Dan's flex right now is Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins, and Cole Beasley.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty nice. I think I'm getting on board with what you're saying. I think the depth on these 2 position groups particularly, is not great. It's not good. I wouldn't even say it's like adequate.
It leaves holes. We have 3 starting spots that I can't account for. Okay, who's going in those spots? Antonio Brown, Kiki Kuti, and Leonard Fournette?
Yeah, I mean, it's not great at all. The only thing I will say is based on his running backs and how there are players that could get better based on landing spots in free agency. Like Leonard Fournette.
It's also flavor of the week with running back. It might be a thing like, so-and-so's hurt in wherever one of them lands. Leonard Fournette's going to get 20 carries this week because, he's the only running back healthy. There's always random value in guys. Like Myles Gaskins and Gus Edwards are 2 guys on my team that, were left for dead going into the year and both ended up being very serviceable at multiple different times throughout the season. So I get it. I'm just saying going into the season, we can't have the starting plan be, hey, maybe someone will become valuable. Like, when we look at the really good teams in our league, they have their rosters filled out from pretty much top to bottom with at least serviceable players in the flex spots, independent of their star power. We talk about like Dan has star power and he has those types of flex players. You won the league and didn't have Saquon Barkley. Now you're going to have Saquon Barkley back to go with Chubb. Like when we get into those groups, like those are the big A's. I can't give this group an A when we're kind of, again, like I said, we have 3 spots accounted for. We can't even fill out the rest of the team.
I think wide receivers too are so valuable in the flex spots because they're generally speaking a little more consistent than running backs too. Like, kind of what the targets are going to look like every week for most receivers. I mean, outside of a breakout or whatever, but like running backs, there's some weeks where I think it was like fucking Kalen Ballage for the Chargers just blew up at it absolutely nowhere. And everybody's like, oh, fucking Josh Kelly and Justin Jackson. And then like somebody shows up out of nowhere. I feel like the variance of carries and workload for running backs is way, way more different than receivers.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. And I have a really good example. Rojo was the 15th running back last year, okay?
Perfect, yeah.
15th running back. There were many weeks that, oh my gosh, you got to start Rojo this week, and then up 7 carries. I think the Giants was one of those weeks that it was
he fucked me in the redraft league a couple times.
You got to start Rojo. He's playing the Giants. The Giants are awful, and he gets 7 carries. I think it ended up being a Fournette week that week. And then there was the game against Carolina where it was like Rojo had okay, I'm looking at it right now. He had 10 carries in the 2 weeks before the Carolina game. Runs for 192 yards in the Carolina game. So like that is exactly to your point that he was still a top 20 running back, and we couldn't even predict him really reliably other than saying just start him and fucking hope that you're going to catch the good weeks and you'll catch some bad. Maybe you can survive. But like, that's a top 20 running back that we're still having that problem with.
Tibbs is really, if you think about when he made all these big trades and these moves and additions, all these moves were a couple of years ago, roughly. And at the time, he was banking on running backs at all of his flex spots, which, like we were just talking about, running backs, generally speaking, can go off and on whenever, really. It just kind of, I mean, he thought at the time that they were workhorses. But I don't like investing my future of my team in running backs. It's just not how I've been in my history. I like to find them when I can and then make some moves to acquire them. But I really don't like giving up a ton of assets for them because they really only have like a 2 to 3 year window most of the time.
I think you said that perfectly. And I think that it kind of underscores the kind of chicken or the egg situation that you kind of have in Dynasty, especially with these people like Alex at the top. Do you draft the running back? The Javonte, the Etienne, the Najee Harris, or do you take the Jamar Chase because with the Jamar Chase, you know you're going to have him for a decade. Whereas, like I just said, we already know Najee Harris is going to be 23 when the season starts. He's going to finish his contract and be a 27-year-old running back going into 28 years old to start year 1 of his second contract. I don't want that. That doesn't make me exciting. No, that could be 4 amazing years of Harris.
You 4 Dynasty championships, yeah.
You can win 2 titles in that time easily. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm not hating on those picks. That's why I said it is a tough situation, the chicken or the egg. But I think right now we've had a whole lot of chicken and not enough egg because he invested heavily in, like you said, running backs who were in the prime or coming off of primes of their career. He bought into running backs. I would say 2 people in particular. Can you bring up the running back graphic for me? Jamie, Can you get that up for me? Like with these running backs, 2 people in particular they bought in, I would tell you, at the worst time. Start with number 1, Le'Veon Bell. So he bought Le'Veon Bell right in the kind of
bought him at
peak value, and also like we were in the middle of this like fight with Pittsburgh. We knew this was brewing. It was kind of like, I don't know, and he gave up big assets to do it. And that always hurts. A first round pick plus CMC. I don't even need to go into it. It also ended up being Chris Carson too, actually. I remember the trade was brokered at my house. James was at my house. We were watching. The hurricane just hit. We were watching. My parents were the only people who had power, and we were watching football there. But so the next player, to get into is Todd Gurley. So Todd Gurley, he has an amazing season and then disappears in the playoffs. This is the run the Rams had to the Super Bowl. Completely disappears, and Tibbs then trades for him after we know, oh gosh, this isn't good.
Right.
And on top of that, he also does it after they draft Darrell Williams. So
yeah, we didn't.
Darrell Henderson.
It was Henderson, yeah.
So we know that like they have in mind like we got to get another body in here, another young body because this isn't working. And he buys in at what I would argue, like the highest point. Yeah, it was just interesting. Like that's how that whole happened. If you remember, it was Scavelli got Gurley first from Alex.
Right, that trade was massive.
And then turned him around and flips him to Tibbs. And that's anytime Scavelli doesn't want a player, red flags need to go off in your head. Like I'm not smarter than Scavelli. I was
surprised he traded me Chubb because I was like, does Chubb suck and I not know it?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Eric. Chubb fell down my board when I saw that happen. My redraft board.
He gave me Brady. I was like, Brady's arm's gonna be fucked this year.
Especially he's on the Bucks. Oh God.
I was scared. I've traded with Scavelli many times. I think in Dynasty I'm less scared of trading with Scavelli than I am in redraft. If Scavelli trades me in redraft, I'm scared because that motherfucker wins. All right, so yeah, I'll give my grade real quick on the wide receivers. I'll give it like a B plus. I'm not gonna give it an A. just because I don't see like a super awesome young guy that I'm like pretty hyped about. Like I feel like in Dynasty, I like to build my team around good young receivers if I can, and then kind of get with those flex spots pretty full of these receivers. Like I've had recently, it's been like Robert Woods. I've had Ayuk this year was a nice contributor. Like those kind of guys where I feel like they're steady Eddie, they're solid guys. And then some young guys to kind of backfill some of those other positions. Whereas on this team, I don't really see anybody outside of those big three that are going to fill those flex spots that are going to get me to the championship, which is you have to have good flex spots in our league. It's just it's so important.
So let me put it this way for you. Let's look at how many top wide receivers he has. Of the top 5, 2. Top 3, he has 2. Okay, of the top, let's say Odell's. You'd say is what, top 20 dynasty?
I'd put him at like 15, something like that.
Okay, that's what I said. Top 20, I think is pretty fair, pretty safe to say. Okay, so he has 3 of the top 20 receivers. Okay, after that, does he have any between 20 and 50? I don't think he has a single one. I don't think Antonio Brown's in the top 50.
I just think Antonio Brown's not going to be the Bucs offense is just so weakly. It's going to be somebody different every week, and I can't rely on him in fantasy at this point.
He's also at best the wide receiver 3. I mean, I don't think Godwin. I think even if Godwin stays or goes, I still feel like Antonio Brown's value is pretty low overall in Dynasty right now. I mean, he's a ticking time bomb too. He can really, something could go wrong at any minute. This offseason's a long offseason, especially with Antonio.
Yeah,
we have no idea.
Time to fuck up. Yeah, I think I'm just not excited about anybody outside the big three. Put it that way. Like I'm just not that thrilled with any of those guys, and with very limited draft capital, I don't see how it gets better anytime soon. That's another thing, which we'll get to in a second.
We'll get to that stuff. Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. Let's so we both
go to the tight ends.
This is a B unit overall. B. I said B. You said B plus. We agree. It's in the B's. So yeah, I said spoiler alert on tight ends. We're here and it's bad, boys. Logan Thomas was serviceable last year, but he's not a player that you could say like.
I thought he really turned it on at the end of the year.
Oh, he did. I'm not so sure that we can.
I wouldn't want him as my number 1 though. That's for sure. I'd love to have him as like a 2, like just like a upside 2 maybe kind of guy.
That's exactly how I feel. Like I'm not comfortable that it was my 1, but yeah, he's a nice upside 2. However, OJ Howard is interesting though. Doesn't he still have 1 more year with the Bucs?
I think he got picked up for 1 more year on his option, and he's just never been healthy, the guy. Like I just would love to see him play a nice season with Tom Brady. I mean, who knows what he could be? We still don't know. It's crazy. After 5 years of OJ Howard, we still don't know what he could be. It's crazy.
No, Alex was trying to get a return on value for that ridiculous trade he made years ago with, I think it was you actually.
He picked him at like 1.5 or 6 or something like that at the time. I want to say 1 year after he picked Max Williams, which was
the Baltimore guy.
Yeah, he was really hot on tight ends in the first round for a couple of years. I don't know why. Max with 2 X's actually.
Of course, a white guy too. By the way,
yeah, redhead. Had all the steps of being a great tight end. But yeah, I feel like Thomas it would be a good upside 2 on most teams. Howard, I also feel like is a good upside 2, maybe just to just hope that he can provide any value that you thought he had. I will say there's a sleeper on this list I really like, and it's Donald Parham. I had him on my roster for a little while, just couldn't keep him for the offseason. I thought there was some better prospects out there, but Hunter Henry is a free agent this year, I believe. And if Hunter Henry leaves, he's going to be the starting tight end, and he was fucking good in the XFL, and he's also caught a couple touchdowns passes this year, looked good, and he's fucking like 6'9", 285 and can run. So like he has like traits that could translate into being a really solid red zone player. So I wouldn't be so fast to cut him if I was Tibbs, because he also doesn't have many other options.
Honestly, this actually between running back and wide receiver, this probably is the best prospects of the 3 groups. Honestly,
I think there's the most upside at this position than any other position. I think that's not even questionable.
Well, the other positions have like stars that are established, or like really like solid guys like Mixon and Eckler, and then here Logan Thomas. I think he was a top like 7 tight end last year.
I mean, by the end of the year, I'm sure he was top 10 for sure, because he really had
wide receiver 2 after Terry.
He had some great weeks there at the end. Like 75 yards and a touchdown, 85 yards, 95 yards and a touchdown. Like, he played well.
He got OJ Howard at a good value too. You know, it was a shame he got hurt. So, you know, I think there's still upside there. And like you already mentioned, Donald Parham and Dan Arnold, barring what the Cardinals do, you know, he also turned in a career year for himself, I believe, last year. So
yeah,
I could see him growing and being a decent guy. You know, tight ends take the longest to mature, I would say.
For sure. It's not even, I don't think that's even a debate at this point. I think they take 2 to 3 years. I mean, a perfect example, another one I gave up on too soon was Gesicki. You just can't bank on rookie tight ends. Well, hey, Waller's another great play. He was also a receiver when I drafted him, so fuck him. But that son of a bitch couldn't pull it together for me. But yeah, like, I think you just got to be patient on tight ends, and finding young ones that people give up on too soon is a huge way to boost your tight end room. I think that's something people need to start looking at more in our league, as far as, you know, I don't have a tight end. What am I going to do? Well, start looking at the ones that people give up on. That's an easy way to get one.
Tight end, yeah, I agree with you. You know, a lot of people say it's deep, and I think it's the opposite. I think it's so shallow that if you don't have one of the top guys, if you don't have one of the top guys, fuck it. Who cares then? I'm just gonna pick up a Logan Thomas and see what happens, because if you can't secure a top guy, it just doesn't make sense to be chasing the Magic Dragon and hoping that you can get a tight end when, you know, it's not that easy to find a guy. You know, you're like you said, you're just as likely to hit on the waiver wire with a flavor of the year type guy, and just hope if you can't secure yourself a top tight end.
Well, yeah, I think it's all about what you can get these players for at the right prices, because like a guy like, if you're hoping to draft, you know, OJ Howard at 1.5, you're going to have to wait a couple of years. And this goes for any rookie tight end. Like, you're going to have to wait a couple of years to see anything. And during that time period, you could have easily just kind of found some dude like to get by. And I feel like if you get the guys at the right price points, it's good. But then if you're also in a position like Tibbs here, where I can't remember the last time Tibbs had a good tight end. I really can't. And I think if you're going all these years, you know, with these type of guys, you're setting yourself up for some disappointing weeks, because you do need to have a tight end that functions to get to a championship.
You absolutely do. I mean, I think you winning with Travis Kelce kind of really underscored that, because it's like an edge that really only you have each week. And the only person who had that similar edge was me with Darren Waller, and that's why I took you to within 3 points. And I think Darren Waller ended up having a good week that week. If I remember
without
correctly.
Kelce, I'm not making it to the championship game, because there was a lot of weeks where I didn't have. I was telling you, I think on the last podcast, I had started like Carlos Hyde one week because I had no other running backs to play. So a guy like Kelce, where I could rely on him to get 9 to 10 points a week, it's like, all right, well, I don't feel as bad about starting Carlos Hyde, because I know I'm going to back up some of that production with my tight end, which is a big asset that I don't think anybody outside of maybe like Waller and Kittle can provide right now.
No, I mean, look, even Waller had 30 points less than Travis Kelce, and Waller had 22 points higher than Mark Andrews, who was third. And you see the pattern here?
Yeah,
By the time we get to like the 10th tight end, Travis Kelce has almost double his points.
Well, put it this way, Jonnu Smith was a top 3 tight end for a good majority of the year, which is crazy. And I believe Jonnu Smith was on Tibbs' team at one point.
I
don't know where he went.
Alex has him. Maybe he cut him or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. But that's the guy I would, if he had Jonnu Smith still on the team, you know, Logan Thomas, OJ Howard, Jonnu Smith, Donald Parham, like all those guys have a ton of upside. Especially now with Smith being a free agent, I believe too. But I think this team obviously is lacking a number 1 tight end. I just don't know how many are really available out there. Like, it's hard to find a number 1 tight end.
No, they don't grow on trees. The fact that I picked up a Waller was lucky.
Yeah, I mean, like, guys like that is what you have to find in order to get into that next grouping of tight ends. And I think, honestly, Tibbs has done a decent job of at least getting some upside guys. So
I agree.
I'm not going to give this an A or anything, but I would say like maybe like a C+.
I was going to give it a C too.
Based on the fact that I thought Thomas showed enough promise last year that you could go into the season, you know, with Thomas as your starting tight end and not feel like you're going to fucking blow the week because of that. But I mean, with him and Howard, I mean, like, let's say Howard finally regains form. I mean, like, that's a pretty decent one too. I mean, I would be okay with that if you don't have like a Kelsey, Kittle, or Waller like we do.
You need another tight end to rotate, so you can at least feel good like, hey, I can play matchups, who's healthiest, who's hot right now, and ride the hot hand throughout the year. This isn't, this is a unit of his. He has other problems. If I was him, I think you could ride these tight ends. You want to look for flex players to bolster the rest of this roster. So, yeah, we gonna do kicker and defense, or?
I usually don't, but if you want to bring them up, that's fine too.
I have nothing to say about it. I just want to say, theory crafting on this team now. Now we can get into real meat and potatoes. So, when I look at Tibbs' team, like we always talked about, you obviously realize how top heavy it is. And when you break it down, all right, what's not happening? Well, he's not going to move Mahomes, of course, obviously. Moving Mahomes is his way of saying he's rebuilding, in my opinion, whenever that happens. And so that's the goal, is to avoid that. So what do we have to do? Well, we don't have draft picks, as the graphic is showing us right now. So while most of the teams are getting better and adding people, getting younger and better, this team is running out the same people that they did last year that barely made it the 5th best team in the league. In addition to that, again, that team that was one and done in the playoffs, as the ended up with the 5th pick, they were relying on 9 touchdowns from Todd Gurley, which we agreed are not really happening. So I think you can't trade Mahomes, you can't trade Hill, because Hill obviously is tied to Mahomes. I think he really has to break up one of his other wide receivers in Odell Beckham or Devontae Adams and look for another few startable players to get in that depth spot, because the waiver wires don't have the players for it, and I think he's just going to come up short again without real depth. And you can do that in many forms, like trading for a draft pick. You could trade Devontae Adams for a couple picks, you know what I mean, this year and next year, plus a players too.
Yeah, you could get quite a haul for somebody like Devontae Adams these days.
And I think this is the highest his value is going to be, maybe ever.
I mean, he's 28, I think. So yeah, he's kind of at peak value right now, kind of like in that DeAndre Hopkins range.
He was wide receiver 1 while missing 2 games. So yeah. It's like I don't think his value is going to be any better than it is right now. And I think that is the player that he can get the biggest haul for to really create a future sustainable roster. If it was me personally, I would trade for just draft picks to look for, all right, well, this experiment's over. My window's kind of shut. Let me work to rebuild for a new window in the next couple of years, get some young guys in here, and look to really surround my Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill for kind of the second stage of their career. Maybe you're not going to get too much more of Tyreek Hill left, but I feel like writing out this current team is a recipe for disaster, and it's going to just end in consecutive one-and-done seasons and things like that. And I say that, quite frankly, because I feel like I did it from a place of experience. Like my team was ridiculously good for a while. You mentioned like finding random tight ends. My team back in the day had Martellus Bennett with the Bears.
Martellus Bennett, man,
right?
Drop. Holy shit!
He had back-to-back 90 catch seasons too, and like
couple nice seasons, yeah.
That's all you need is that, like, a guy who can get the ball in Dynasty, get some touchdowns, upside. I had him, Brandon Marshall, AJ Green, Jamal Charles, Matt Forte. I was fucking cooking. And then I blinked and it was all over. And then it kind of became like, all right, well, what am I doing? And I started to do half-ass trades. Like, let me trade for Jay Ajayi. Thought I got him a good value. Turns out he fucking sucks dick. So it's like, you kind of, you try and pick up the pieces, but at a certain point, you just have to say, this roster doesn't have enough to get me over that hump. And I feel like Tibbs losing in the playoffs back-to-back years, still, again, no draft picks to get better, not getting younger.
I think another thing, too, is it's another year older for these running backs, too, that are already old. So, like, I mean, like, Gurley is getting older. I mean, the thing is, Gurley's not old age-wise, but his body's older. Fournette's, I mean, he's youngish, but he's not that great. I mean, Le'Veon's probably pushing 30 at this point.
All of these players were in tremendously different situations even 2 years ago or 1 year ago at this time. So, like, to even project the value going
the value's
forward
not going
is
up.
so hard. It's not going
They're
up.
Not going up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, nobody on this team is going up in value. Literally, I don't think anyone's going up in value.
I think everybody's at their peak value or going down at this point.
Correct, including the stars, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams. Like, those guys are never going to be worth more than they are now at this exact moment in time.
The only team group that I could see is tight end, and that they're all just kind of upside twos. Like, none of those guys are like, you can't trade any of those guys for a haul. So, like, I do agree, like, maybe splitting up Hill or I wouldn't trade Hill because you said the stack, and I agree with that. I would probably look more towards Beckham or Adams if I was going to move any of them. And then honestly, I was going to throw out this idea of trading Mayfield. Maybe if you trade Baker and then add maybe a rookie this year or find a way to get another veteran type backup. Mayfield. There might be a team looking for a guy like that, particularly like an Alex or maybe a Justin looking for somebody else that to kind of 1-2 punch with somebody else.
Well, he has his picks next year, and I don't think there's any shame in trading a pick next year with like a guy like a Baker Mayfield, and like you said, getting back into the first round this year to get a player that he might really like at a certain point. If a person in the back half is into that, I think that's definitely something that, like you said, he should look into. But it's tough to break up. It's tough to break up quarterbacks because you have most of the people who value quarterbacks. Well, we already have quarterbacks because we're not fucking idiots like Alex. And then you have people like Alex who don't value quarterbacks, and guess what? They're not going to fucking trade you. They don't value quarterbacks. So it's like you have this weird catch-22. Like, Alex is not going to invest in quarterback until the rest of his team's ready to win, which I understand that, but it's rough over there, homie. So
it's like I don't see how it gets better without a quarterback. That's the problem. Like
or running back, which but we're not talking about Alex. So like with Tibbs, it's tough to really trade that quarterback. I think he's really more sitting with the situation of like Devontae Adams or Odell Beckham. You look at Odell Beckham, I think he's low in value or a buy low character because of coming off of a torn ACL. I wouldn't want to trade Odell Beckham because I don't think you're going to get value for Odell Beckham.
I think there's too many consecutive seasons of just disappointment at this point where it's like, I'm not going to pay a first round pick and something else for Odell. I don't think anybody's doing that.
No, I mean, I'm at 1.6. I think Odell is worth more than 1.6. Don't you, Eric?
Yeah, I think he's worth 1.6 and then maybe like a little throw-in or something like that.
Okay, I agree. I wouldn't trade 1.6 for him. Why?
Yeah.
What's the why would I need to do that to myself?
Well, I mean, especially this year where it's kind of deep at receiver. Like, you might get somebody really good at 1.6.
I could get Waddle, Smith. Like, there's a great chance I get one of those players. And it's like, why would I want to trade for an injured Odell Beckham? Like you said, coming off of disappointing seasons. It doesn't make sense. It makes sense for Tibbs to just hope that he can. That's a gamble that Tibbs kind of has to take and just pray that it sticks and works. I think that was the last first round pick Tibbs had, by the way. Or no, it was Joe Mixon.
Holy shit, that was a long time ago.
Mixon. No, he traded with me for Joe Mixon, for Doug Baldwin, who died after a year.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember the last time Tibbs had a first round pick.
Yeah, so Devontae Adams, like I said, if he's not the wide receiver one, then it's Tyreek Hill. So, and I don't think. So it's one or the other, and we said we're not trading Hill, so I think it has to be Devontae Adams, to find a partner that's willing to give him either a combination of now assets or draft picks. Honestly, whatever he's looking to do to with his team going forward. But like speaking from experience, like I kind of just like went through the motions of like, hey, we'll see how it goes. See how it goes, and you see how it goes for too long, and like I said, before you know it, you're drafting second overall, and you're like, do I take Geis or Rojo? I don't know. That's where I ended up being eventually, and I kind of feel like this team's heading for it. I mean, we talked about this team cannot survive Pat Mahomes not being elite.
Yeah, I think if you lose Pat, well, first of all, if Pat isn't elite, then chances are Tyreek Hill is probably not going to be elite either. So you're at a 1-2 right there. I think this team, if I'm going to give a prediction for maybe next year based on what I'm seeing, like it's hard to give them any bigger of a spot in the rankings because, like you said, I just don't see any way these flex spots get filled because there's just not enough picks. I mean, he's gonna have to drill 3, 5, and 4, 5 to, like, he's gonna need like an Antonio Gibson, Chase Claypool like situation to even to get to that level that I think a Dan, a Scavelli, myself, like I think it's going to be a rough sled just because there are guys ahead of him that just have more depth. I think and a depth is so important in Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that he's in the muck. He is no longer gets the title of a top team like he had for years. I think the top teams are pretty clear in you, Dan, and Scavelli. And then I think Tibbs falls in that like middle tier of the muck. And he can go in either direction, in my opinion. I think he could end up maybe having a great year. Like you said, maybe he hits on a trade, a couple draft picks, brings in some guys and can make it work. But I could also see this team bottoming out. I could see even Mahomes having a great year, and I could still see this team not really doing much. Last year, like I look at the standings right now, last year he was the 4th team when in the standings. Okay. He had a 7-6 record, same record as Sean, and he was only 1 win ahead of you and Dustin. Dustin was out of the playoffs.
What was he in points by chance, if you're looking at it?
I can bring it up. Give me 1 second. He was better in points, though. But see, points is usually what's super important, but it's kind of weird in Dynasty because like he may have blown someone out by 100 1 week and then put up only 100 himself the next week. So that's why like points overall is weird. A good example of that is Sean, who had the same exact record as Tibbs.
Yeah, and he had the second least amount of points.
Least amount of points. So yeah, like Tibbs was 4th in points, mind you, at 1740, and almost 300 more points than Sean, and had the same record. And I think that speaks to the inconsistencies in the roster that week to week you don't know what Tibbs team you're going to get. Is he going to go on a 3-week stretch in a championship that wins him the league? It absolutely could happen. Almost like it almost did happen with Sean this year. Even your team, for example, you played your best football when it mattered most in the playoffs. So yeah, it's not that he can't win with this team. It's just that we keep coming back to the same old tropes. There's not good depth. Everyone else has gotten better. This team can't get better. And it's really reliant on 5 studs.
And yeah, I mean, and Tibbs really tried to acquire, a full squad of 9 studs. I just think someone didn't work out, and here we are. It's a situation where I don't see a lot of upside moving forward, but I also like the top studs that he has now. So, I would predict, I predict he finishes 4th, 5th again. That's kind of what I think.
If I had to predict, I would say I think he's going to be lucky to make the playoffs. I think he'll be like the 6th seed or the 5th seed.
Okay.
I mean, when you break it down, like I said, so we established last year that he finished behind Dan, Scavelli, and myself, and you, who won the league, even though you were below him in the standings. Okay, we'd probably put all those teams ahead of him, and then it kind of comes down to it. Like, I like Justin's team better than his. I feel like Justin's team is almost the exact same team with maybe a little less star power but more depth.
Oh yeah, and Justin's got 1, 2, and 1, 3 this year. So like,
that's what we always get back to.
That's the way we could see his team even improving, whereas I just don't see Tibbs' team really improving.
But that's why I said, like, to get back to where he was, he's going to need Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Pat Mahomes to all repeat years in which they were top 2 players at their position.
Yeah, I mean, he's asking a lot. We'll put it that way.
I think Mixon has a lot of. That's really his best. That's his best upside for getting better. Is Mixon doesn't. Mixon actually produces this year.
Yeah, if Mixon's an RB1, it really helps his cause. That's for sure.
Well, that's how he becomes the team that's a 3 seed or higher and maybe can make some noise. But yeah, then we get back to like, I don't think he's that much better than Dustin's team. Even like without Dustin having 3 first-round picks, I don't think he's that much better than Dustin. It's a very comparable team. Like when it's all said and done, like I think Dustin's final raw starters are very similar. That's why at the end of the year they had similar points in record. Maybe he's better than James's team, but I feel great with James having CMC back. Now Justin Herbert said a year under his belt. CeeDee Lamb's going to get Dak back. If James can hit on AJ Dillon, I think James's team is a fierce team waiting to happen. But like,
but these
where's
are all
that AJ?
guys.
Exactly. Where's the AJ Dillon on Tibbs's roster? There is
no.
On any position other than tight end.
Mike Boone? Is it Mike Boone?
Is it Mike Boone? Is Mike Boone going to usurp Dalvin Cook and Alex Madison? Oh, I don't know. You never know. But I wouldn't want to bank on that. So yeah, I mean, the only team I will say I think that right now I would put him over Alex, of course, but that's obvious. And I'd probably put him over, like, I feel like his team is better than Sean's. Like, I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah,
and then after that, I think it's kind of like, because Sean also has the same problem that Adam has, and that he can't really get much better. Sean's getting better by people coming back from IR, like Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, he had a few injuries this year,
and Mostert too. That's another one on top of my head that I remembered Sean had. But like, for Tibbs, it's really Odell, Joe Mixon are kind of the only two people that can really come back and give him an increase in value. And like I said, Joe Mixon still played last year, and so did Odell. It's just they obviously got hurt and eventually shut down. But yeah, I think though this team, I think it's firmly in the muck. I think that it's tough to really project it getting much better from here without draft picks. And this is just for this year. I mean, even going forward, it gets even grimmer as time goes on without draft picks to really replace these guys coming in.
Yeah, I think we have established that we don't think he's a top 4 team. I think that's pretty safe to say. So we'll wrap up on that. I think we're at about an hour and 15 minutes, so a little bit more than usual. But yeah, so I appreciate you coming on to talk about the chili cheese fries.
Thanks for having me. I loved it.
Yeah, I think we're 4 of these deep now, so we got some more to go here before the draft time. We're going to try to wrap up all these before the draft starts. And then we're hoping to maybe give you a little draft preview at some point. So maybe I'll have you on for that one too.
Oh, good. I love talking draft.
Everybody, rough drafts, first drafts, last drafts, whatever drafts you want. I'll talk about any draft. Rookie drafts, waiver drafts. I mean, there's so many drafts. MLB drafts. Fuck, I don't even like baseball. MLB drafts. I'll do it all. Hockey draft. Hey, I actually do like the hockey draft these days. The only draft I can't get into is the NBA draft. I just don't.
I hate lotteries. I hate them. I fucking hate the lottery system.
What if our fucking draft was a lottery? Our rookie drafts. How hilarious would that be?
I would hate
that. And Alex goes 1-15 and then gets picked 6. It'd be fucking hilarious. We should do that one year just to fuck with people.
The worst part would be how he tries to make it seem like I actually like 1-6 better because there were a lot of guys that were like traps up there, and I don't want to be forced into taking them.
Well, no, it would make it
my guy.
It would make it easier for him because then he could take like Mecole Hardman. It doesn't look as bad. It's like
he took it 5 2 years ago. It was awful.
It was just like 4 or 5. It wasn't even that far off.
Ugh.
Jesus Christ. Well, we're talking about more of Alex's shitty draft picks another day. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PHU Dynasty podcast, and we'll see you next time.